Feel free to go and talk to him. He's a nice chap and he really does know what he's doing. The zest jigs that he does, his assist cord, his terminal tackle is right up there and all stuff that we all use. Okay, so I'm going to talk about reels. Accurate is an American company. Essentially, they're a CNC machine shop. They build crankshafts for Boeing jet turbine engines. They build machine gun parts, surgical instruments. Quite cool stuff. On the offside, they are fishermen. And about sort of 18 years ago, they come up with this idea for a twin drag reel. And essentially, this is what most of the twin drag reels you see now have been copied off. Basically, the drag clamps from both sides of the spool, so it's like a disc brake on a car. And what it does is it means that little reels like this can put out over 15 kg of drag. Like Chris says, these are pulling the same as the average 80 wide reels. They're pretty formidable. Okay, where I come in, sort of 7 or 8 years ago, the Pony Loos and the Jigging Master guys are all getting jigging as we know it now, started down here in New Zealand. Essentially they're fishing accurate reels, but Accurate didn't design the reels for jigging as such. It's not as big in America as what it's come down here. So you would buy your Accurate reel and then you would buy some aftermarket parts for it, normally the arm and the knob. And you would set them up for jigging. There was nothing that you could really buy off the shelf that you could just go and seriously jig with. So I just thought, why don't we design a reel that is going to do that? So essentially over the last 7 years, along with Accurate, we've developed a reel that is specific for jigging and live baiting on leads on the bottom. So we got rid of a couple of features on the reel. The standard reel has a cast control, which is a casting aid, and it has a clicker. They normally come with a 75mm arm and a ball knob similar to this one. Real good for bottom fishing, casting, a whole range of fishing, but not technically tuned for jigging. So we put longer arms on, we got rid of the cast control and the clicker, we just didn't use them. And we put power knobs on there and we started selling them as purpose-built reels. What that's turned into for me is I've ended up with my own, this is sort of 7 years on, my own model of reel. And it's one of the more popular jigging reels that you can buy right now. For myself, I'm now selling reels out to Australia, Singapore, Dubai, looking at South Africa, countries like that. It's really become quite an integral part of the jigging scene. And any of our slammer range on Chris's rods is a very formidable jigging combo right now. So these reels, they're not built at a price point, okay, so we're talking about a $680 reel out to $800. What you're getting is a reel that is true to what it says it is. They're fully CNC machined, they're machined out of 6061 T6 aluminium, that's aircraft grade aluminium. Basically, for me, it's the least corrosive, most dense alloy that you can get, so it's really good to build a fishing reel out of. The gears, we've got straight cut teeth on them, we've got 17.4 heat treated stainless. They are a noisy gear compared to helical cuts and brass and aluminium softer compounds, but what we have to appreciate that for jigging, your average jigging reel will do twice the winding of a normal reel in its whole life the first time you take it out. Jigging is just extremely hard on the actual fishing reel. It's not necessarily the fish you're catching, it's the technique of how you're doing it. And to be fair, the average unrhythmic white guy can be pretty hard on a jigging reel. Okay, so what we do is we don't say you've got no rhythm, go and practice it. They Accurate just build the reels tough. So we literally have the heaviest, because a lot of this, it's all good to have 20 or 15 or 20k of drag coming out of the spool. The rest of the reel has to be able to handle it. So it's a little bit on the petrol head and relate a lot of stuff to cars. No point having a big motor if your gearbox and diff can't handle the power you're putting through it. And you don't realise it until you actually start hanging on to 10 or 15k of pull going that way and you're trying to crank a reel this way, particularly a modern jigging reel that's got a high speed ratio on it and a long cranking arm on it. It is very, very hard on the drive line of the reel. The Accurates have the heaviest main shaft out of any reel per size. They have the biggest anti-reverse bearing per size. They have one of the only sealed anti-reverse bearings. We like to run anti-reverse bearings over a dog system. Dogs are a little bit old school to start with. They're a little bit clunky on the backlash and they're noisy. We need to appreciate a jigging reel is been wound all day, so having a zzz noise can be irritating, to say the least. So we like anti-reverse bearings. One feature that I came up with about the biggest problem or issue that we had with accurate reels over this time, when you have an anti-reverse bearing without a dog set up, if that bearing runs out of oil, it can start running backwards, so your reel literally loses the ability to not wind backwards and it gets you in trouble. What I came up with was a couple of seals that go around the bearing and essentially they hold the oil in the bearing. So it's quite a good development for us because this pretty much was the only negative on the Accurates was water or any reel that runs an anti-reverse bearing. But for the last sort of 5 or 6 years we pretty much nailed that one on the head. One thing we get when we buy Accurates is this is just a small family, third generation family company. So I kind of ended up dealing with the guys that actually design the reels as opposed to a corporate type setup where a lot of the time you don't get to see these guys. So we offer a big range of these reels. All the reels, basically you can dictate the colours of the spools, the arms, the knobs. You can dictate the ratio. Any of these reels you can buy in a 4:1, 5:1, 6:1 ratio. You can buy 3 different arm lengths and 3 different knob choices, and it all comes in the same sort of money. So what we like to say is we can custom tune the reel to suit exactly what you want to do with it and yourself as well. A lot of jigging is just personal preferences, and a lot of it comes down to how physical you are and how strong you are. So kind of the agreement is that most people like to be able to get the lures moving as fast as they can, as in you want to have a high ratio. The reality of a high ratio is it's really hard on you as a fisherman. So what we've ended up doing, instead of trying to dictate to everyone what we think you should use, we let you do that. So we'll tell you what you want to use for the size person you are. A lot of it comes down to that now for us. If you're a smaller, not so physical person, you're going to want a lower ratio reel, you're going to want a smaller diameter spool, they're easier to wind. The taller and more physical you are, the more you're going to be able to crank the bigger reels. One thing we have come up with these higher ratios is the longer you make the arm, the easier the ratio feels. So up until now, a lot of people have thought I need to drop the ratio of the reel so that I can wind it. Now we're talking about putting longer arms on them, and so you can retain the same ratio. What that longer arm does is just puts more pressure on, or you can put more pressure on everything, and you can get an easier crank. So we essentially custom tuned the reel to suit you, and a lot of it comes down to the size of your body. Next. They do quite a few different sort of anodizings and colours. We've got quite trick colourings going on here. These are not painted, they're a 3-step anodization. It's pretty cool, it doesn't come off. Quite trick, we've got them in the blues and the reds. Our basic standard model comes black with a red spool. It's called a DFS Slammer, and yeah, they're pretty good reels. What we like is the size of it will be dictated by the line of weight you want to fish and you as a person. So our smallest reel has all the drag you want, it has all the strength through the main body you want. But for a tool, like for a person like me, I can't retrieve enough line on this, even as a 6:1, for my lift. As we're lifting the rod and winding back down to retrieve the line, I'm lifting it too high. So I've got to go to a bigger reel with a bigger diameter spool and a higher ratio so that I'm not getting a loose lay on the spool. You want to have your line going tight back onto the spool. When your fish hits and runs, you crank that drag up, you don't want your line to be burying down inside the spool. As a general rule, this reel here can put out over 15 kg of drag. You pretty much need 80-pound line to be able to run that kind of drag. Most people will put 300 metres of 50 pound on a reel this size. Personally, I like 280 metres of 65 pound. Our little 500, 300 of 65, There's a few other things starting to come out now. A lot of the stuff I play with is sort of design stuff for accurate now. So we're starting to play with 7-to-1s in the little reels. So what we've done is we've gone and designed this reel that is nice and small and compact, but it just doesn't retrieve the line quick enough, especially for the taller guys. So we're now looking at reels that are 7-to-1 ratios. There's a few other interesting things coming out. This sort of stuff here, there's a bit of a craze for what we call over-under reels. So this is literally an overhead reel that has been strapped underneath the reel. So spin reels are popular with jigging. The reality of spin reels, they're nice and comfortable, everything's under the rod, it's balanced, but they're quite bulky and they're quite a weak design when you're comparing them to an overhead. So basically what we can do is we can downscale the size of the reel by putting the reel underneath. So the average size spin reel like that one there, we could replace with this sort of thing here. So we've got some quite interesting things coming through with higher ratio small reels and the under-over sort of stuff here too. Accurate, it was interesting, we got a shipment in last week and I discovered that they do planers for surfboards. So there's a few other things that are going to come up, but seeing as though we're coming to Gisborne and there's a bit of surfing down here, things like their planers, a lot of the stuff they do is just industrially tough. And it's built to last, it's not built at a price point. The integrity of their metals is important. And these are guys that they're not a corporate company trying to get rich off making fishing reels. They are guys who like and have a passion for fishing and have a CNC machine shop and they've started doing reels. So they're very, very passionate about what they do. These reels are available down here at Discount Fishing. Colin, come and see him. All the custom stuff you can talk to him about. Essentially you can design the reel to the colours and the specs that you want and he can get it in for you. We've got a little 500, basically I've got a 400, 500 and 600 set up here. We're going to run it on Chris's rods. Essentially what this thing is a simulator and what we can do is hook you up to pretty much a 30 odd kg kingfish and you can come and feel what these rods and what these reels can do. So I think soon or sometime we can start, anyone who's keen to come up and have a go on the machine, come up. And has anyone got any questions on the reels? Awesome. So if anyone wants to talk about this stuff, just come up afterwards. I'll hand you back over to Craig and we'll see what we're going to